You are now listening to FNB Radio.
And welcome to FNB Radio. My name is Lindsay Collins, and I am your host. Three things happened to me this week that really fucked me up. Okay, they all had to do with food. It was really confusing. Some of them matter more than others, but I'm just going to spout them off in random order, and then I'm going to get into why they bothered me. But the first one was, as many of you may know, if you're a nerd in food, Rene Redzepi announced that they're closing NOMA in 2024. Okay, we'll just put a pin in that. If you don't know who that is or what that is, just hold tight. The second thing was that I also produce other podcasts, and I was listening to one of my clients' podcasts, and he was interviewing a new restaurant that opened, and he's talking about all the technological advancements and how like high tech this restaurant's going to be. And then finally, like midway through the conversation, it came out that there will be no staff, none at all. It's a pickleball court with food and like nice food, not like, we're not talking like mozzarella sticks, although I love mozzarella sticks, so it's not a diss, but there will be no staff. And so that was weird. I was like, oh my God, are we in the future? What's happening? There's no people to wait on you, even at a pickleball place. Who's going to pick up your balls, you know? And then Jeremy went to Trader Joe's and there was no food, like none. And he was like, hey, did you guys just get crushed, or is it like, what happened? And the guy was like, no, we just placed orders and they haven't come in for weeks. They're not restocking our shelves. Okay, so I say all that to say it feels like all of the sudden the landscape of not just how we eat on the macro global level, but on like the micro and even the at-home level is changing rapidly. And so I sat down, truth be told, I sat down and tried to like record this episode earlier today, and I was just so mixed up in my thoughts. I couldn't get through it. I was like stumbling, and it was just really not, I needed someone to talk to about it. So for your listening pleasure, surprise, there's a guest. It's Robert Pratt. Robert Elliott Pratt is on the show. He's been sitting here in the green room. The crowd goes wild. Robert, welcome. Help me sort out my thoughts.
Wow, this was such I'm just as surprised as you are. I opened my computer and there you were, and I was like, how the hell did she do that?
It's magic.
I was like, oh my God, why is the recording thing on? Then I thought, so I'm happy to be here.
It's a pleasure. And just so you know, just for, if you haven't been a longtime listener, if you have, you know Robert Pratt and you know our history together. But just to bring everybody up to speed, Robert and I have been friends for many, many years. We worked together at Per Se. He's since gone on to work at many incredible restaurants, not to name them off in all in order, but the French Laundry, King, Chez Maton, many, 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 many wonderful places. And so Robert gets this story. Robert understands this story. And I actually, we haven't talked about this, so this is really cool because this is going to be very fresh. I am curious.
Ideas. We might have opposing thoughts.
We could. And I think that would be really fun. I'm just glad that someone here that's worked in a similar background. You've also eaten at NOMA, right?
Yes. Well, I forget that we both work there for free.
Right.
We both work there for free, and it's so crazy because when I saw all of that news, all the NOMA stuff, I was like, I have such a hard time understanding. I'm like, who's worked there for free? I'm like, I turn into Jennifer Coolidge. I'm like, who's worked there for free? And I'm like, oh, I did.
Oh, wait, it was me.
And I was like, oh, wait, it's called Lindsay. I know too.
Exactly. So we both worked there for free. Eaton, did you get to eat there for free at least?
No.
No?
But the family meal is really good. The family meal was always good. And it was so much food and themed, and of course the food was made by the paid staff, and because I think
they have a lot more energy, you know. They have a lot more like life force.
They have a lot more incentive to live. So.
Yeah. They have a lot more avenues to live anyway, you know, money and whatnot.
Right.
All right, but tell me just your take, and then I want to tell you mine. I want to hear yours first, though. Or whatever. We can take turns, but I want to know what your honest thoughts were when you read the headline, because food media sort of went they just hang on everything that
Wild.
Renee
They
Redzepi
went
does.
wild for it.
Yeah, they love it. They love it.
So
But why do they love it?
why? Okay, here's what I've gathered. I've gone to Noma 2 years in a row in January, once to eat, once to work,
For
and
free.
I had nothing but a wonderful experience. I think going in, when you work there and you understand the logistics and the dynamic, you are almost more than happy there to work there for free.
Yeah,
And
agreed.
you're just like, yeah, whatever you need, got it. Ooh, because it feels like you're at the center of the food universe.
Yeah.
And you feel like every night there is, we're talking like Chinese royalty. We're talking,
Mhm.
you see, you see everything, you
Yes.
know, someone who makes just jewelry on the side, but yet they have a very successful business. Like Noma, when I was there, they had an in-house therapist. Someone that
Oh,
saw
that's
all of
in
the.
the 2.0 version. When I was there in 1.0, they hadn't gotten to the therapist yet, but that's
No,
that's really nice.
no, they were still crying in the walk-in. But um, it's interesting because when everyone's there, everyone understands the objectives. It's a great networking place where you get to
Mhm.
meet all these different people. You meet other people that are working there for free, not just kitchen and dining room, but there's a Som who came from Norway who's very successful, but yet wants to work for free as well. The thing that I didn't get when I went there was that they just throw you right in. They don't care your level of anything. They're like, how we do it, you go right into it. Which I thought just one day of just pure eyes on the floor, would have been like a way to assess the movement. But you learn very quickly that everyone there is like they're there to work. And so when I read this, what is it called? The
A
thing.
headline.
Yeah, headline. Thank you. Yes, I was going to say the title of the article.
When I read the
Um,
words that were at the top of the article,
yes, the headline. Basically, the only thing I really do read.
I was gonna say, I'm always like, I read an article, it's just a
I'm like, I love that part that they said. But yeah,
headline.
so when I read the headline, I was like, okay, there's got to be something here. And then when I read the subtext and sort of the juiciest parts of the article, what I thought was okay and fair is that a restaurant of that stature, a one of grandeur, and more so, not so in what it's serving or like the service wares or anything like that,
Prestige of it.
just like just like the mountain that it's on, I
Mm.
think kind of deserves to have, personally, it's like going away season. Like it's like we're going out with a bang 2024, like the whole orchestra plays on, you know what I mean? I
Yes.
think it's deserving, just because I think people really do. I think so many people are connected to this restaurant and it means so much to so many people that it's their opportunity in a way to kind of get to say goodbye to it. That's what
Yeah.
I think. I think that, yeah, it's like, there's all this stuff that has come up and bubbled, and they're like, Renee Redzepi is abusive. And I don't, I don't know. When I was there, he wasn't, because he was doing like, if you've been here for more than 5 years, you get 3 months paid vacation. He's like, by the way, I will take mine first.
Yeah, he's like, I'll go first.
I'll go first, just as tribute.
And then all of you
Um,
can just go after. Not you though, the unpaid.
yeah, I personally thought that um, he was someone that was on the mend at that point. He was in the process of healing. A more newer father, husband, and I'm not saying that these things like fix or correct anything, but I do think that he's even more so just I can't handle it anymore.
Yeah.
I personally can't handle it. He probably can't sleep at night. It really bothers him and it really keeps him up about the sustainability of that restaurant, and I have to say, talk about a group of people that work there for years. So is it really that bad? They work there for years.
No, I think
5+
honestly, I
years.
don't think it's a bad place to work. I think it's an incredible place to work. My experience there was amazing. What shocked me about the headline and about the way people responded to the headline was that people were more like, not Noma. Oh, damn. Like they just can't deal with it not being there because it represents, it's like the pinnacle of fine dining, of any dining. Like it is like if you travel all the way to the top, that's where you end up. And the thing is, I was like, this is more chilling to me as the canary in the cave for, I've been looking at, not on a fine dining schedule, like situation, but like how does the math work when the restaurant industry has gone through such a reckoning, not just with starting with the Me Too movement of like, hey, we want not just like not abusive conditions, but we want fair conditions, fair pay, all of these things that I am all for. By the way, let me just say I'm all for these. But when I see them overlaid onto a restaurant model as it currently is, I'm like, the math does not work. You cannot pull off what they pull off at NOMA. And it's interesting to note that they just started paying their stages less than 12 months ago. And so then after that, they're like, all right, we can't do this. We can't do this with all these payments going out. And I'm not taking a shot at them. I'm saying it's physically not possible to make the numbers work when you have that many people, because when I was there, it was 1.0. Okay, it was NOMA 1.0.
Old space too.
The old space, and it was the main kitchen. Well, there was multiple kitchens, but the main upstairs, like prep kitchen where everybody was getting their stuff together. And then there was this back room that was not temperature controlled where all of the unpaid stagiaires were. And I was there on a scholarship. So I was technically being paid. I had been given a stipend from Per Se to be there. Mm-hmm. So I was being paid, and I had,
to be fair, me too. I got the scholarship at, I just followed in my mama's footsteps.
Okay, so you weren't unpaid, right? So I was like,
not by NOMA. We were not paid by NOMA. We were paid by our own company.
Yes, correct. And I knew Matt Orlando, who was the chef de cuisine at the time. He was the reason that I was there, because I was supposed to go to Anne Sophie Pick's restaurant, but she wouldn't accept my stage because I didn't speak French fluently. So it was a last minute, like game time decision for me to go to NOMA in the first place. And this was 2011. And there were so many people, I want to say 40 people, lined up on tables doing really mundane things like harvesting, like coriander, or peeling almonds, or doing really, really painstaking, digging through hundreds and hundreds of pounds of potatoes that had been left to rot. And then new potatoes grow out of the rot, and they're these small little peanuts, and that's what you're harvesting. So it's often very, very grueling, hard work that makes these dishes that go on the menu at places like this possible. But here's my thing. Like, I don't feel like I was mistreated. I was fed well. I was not paid by NOMA, but I was fed well. And I was amazed at the people from all over the globe. The one that stands out the most, and I've told this story before, but is the one woman from Latvia who was a chef who owned her own restaurant and was there to work for free to learn. And she didn't speak any English, and she only knew how to say, show me. And so everyone would be like, blah, 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 tell her what to do. And she wouldn't get it at all. She would just be like, I didn't understand any of that shit, but show me. And then they would give her a demo, and she could do whatever task it was. So that's how bad people wanted to be there. And if I think about old school, like owning a restaurant or running a restaurant, like one of the oldest careers that there is, feeding people while they're on the road to whatever town they're going to. I don't know. You know how the olden days used to be? It was just like someone would make food and then you could sell it to a traveler. And that's kind of how it started. And I just think apprenticeship, and I'm not talking about like unpaid labor because it's so sticky, but what I'm saying is they do get a lot out of it. And working there, quote unquote, for free when I did, opened a ton of doors for me. And I met a lot of people that I'm still in contact with. And that's what made that restaurant able to keep doing what it's doing. But when you overlay the kind of corporate conditions that people are asking for, which are basically just decency, but I get confused in my head because I'm like, I don't know if restaurants can be decent in that way, in a corporate way. Do you know what I mean? Is that like a weird thing to say? Because this is what I was struggling with. I was like, when I say that, I sound like a boomer who's like, just work harder. And it's not that.
It's true. Well, I thought it was interesting that Noma had opening and closing shifts for servers
Mhm.
and for dining room staff, and I was like, oh, it's quite American, you know.
Mhm.
I'm like, I was like, I'm an opener today, and then you're only really leaving an hour to like a half hour before the closer,
Yeah.
and I think the shortest day that I worked there was 13 hours.
Oh,
Like
wow.
yeah, it's that, but that's just what the restaurant demands. But you only work around 4 days a week, and
Yeah.
you close for 2 weeks in between seasons. Again, 2.0 jargon talk, all of that. And I
And like,
actually
what is it? An
they do
Intel
close.
premium processor?
What's that?
It's like, what is it? An Intel premium pure processor? 1.0, 2.0, 3.0?
It is. It is. Well, I mean, I'm curious to see the next iteration of what they want to do. I think that the pop ups, when I asked them about the pop ups, going to Mexico, going to Australia,
Japan.
they're like, those were so successful. They're a lot of work, but the time in between, where people get to really flush out the details, they get to talk about how they want the service to be, and they get to arrive at the place and like acclimate and be there and really tailor everything to the time and place where they are and they're existing. They transform Tulum into like this jungle paradise where they're all wearing Birkenstocks, and I'm like, there's something about it that I'm like, that's really cool. And that was really hot at the time too. Everyone was like, it's $600 just for the food. And like, when you see what they did there and the fact that they had people from that part of Mexico making the tortillas, making the things, it's like, no, no, no. They didn't just go in there and they were disrespectful and they're like, we can make tortillas too. They were like, no, how do we make it so that we're here, but we're being as minimal impact as possible? I think that's like a slightly more Danish way of thinking too.
I think so too. And I also think just knowing what we've seen from that team is that that is the future. And I've been kind of, like I said, as I look at like just regular, like run of the mill restaurants, like small businesses, and I see how the math can't work when you have to pay someone a livable wage, which is what, like $20 an hour now? I mean, that's a lot of money to pay someone, where it used to be like, here's 213 an hour. If you're good, you'll make your tips. We source really good ingredients. We try really hard. We work as a team, and we put in the time, and that's how it was like kind of like a choose your own adventure situation. And now when you put all these things that have to happen, and all, paid vacation and things that just suddenly start dipping into the bottom line, and the cost of ingredients, the cost of rent. These Michelin star restaurants are usually on extremely expensive real estate. So I'm like, is are fine dining restaurants endangered? Is the way that we eat? And that's why the other things that I noticed about this week, where I was like, people have moved on from complaining about the staffing crisis to opening concepts that don't have servers.
Yeah.
Things like fine dining are technically superfluous. Like, you don't need to have that kind of a meal. And I've been on, like, watching people just do pop-ups around Charleston, around all over in every major city. And during the pandemic, people kind of took things into their own hands. And so I was like, that's kind of the future, is saying when the thing will be available, or it will go totally private to people who can afford. Like, accessibility is no more. You know what I mean? It will not be even accessible for a young cook to go to those kind of places. But I'm like, I'm not saying it's good or it's bad. I'm just saying I think that's the future, because this will not be the first one that is like, hey, when we're asked to do all these things that we feel are morally right to keep the restaurant sustainable for the planet and for the people working in it, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And everyone's been scratching their head and being like, well, we're going to find a way. And I think everyone was waiting for Rene Redzepi to figure it out. And when he was like, oops, it's not, everyone was like, uh-oh, it's not? What does that mean? And so people are just like freaking out, and also mourning just NOMA in general being gone, or going to be not the same. They're basically going to turn it into a lab and then do pop-ups. But I think that's going to be the future regardless.
Yeah.
And I think it will slowly trickle down into everything, because everyone, like, that I speak to, and I used to say, and I've said it on this podcast before, like, oh, well, there will always be restaurants because it's the oldest thing that's ever had, it's the oldest way to make money and people will always need to eat and there will always be food for sale. And that is true. But how it will be given to you, I think is going to change very rapidly from here on out. Not to be like doom and gloom, but the landscape of how we eat is changing in a crazy fast way now. The pandemic kind of accelerated everything,
Yeah.
but it's kind of chilling to see a place like Noma because I'm like, surely everyone just looks at those concepts or like Per Se or the French Laundry or 11 Madison Park,
Yeah.
any of these 3 Michelin star concepts and things like they're rich. But what I know and what you know, and I'm sure you can speak to this, is those restaurants rarely turn a profit. It's a flagship for a brand. And then, like for instance, with Per Se, you see these satellite concepts around it that are actually supporting it. You can go to Bouchon, you can go to Bouchon Bistro, and you can go to Ad Hoc, and you can go to all these places to like support, or you can buy the CSA from 11 Madison Park. They are having to do other things because seriously, when you crunch the numbers, the math does not work. And
Yeah.
it's like, what are people going to do besides close their concept? And will there be traditional fine dining? Because how can there be if Renee can't do it, who the hell can?
Right. What's interesting is that I was applying to work at a new fine dining restaurant that isn't open yet, so I won't discuss it.
Hmm.
I'm gonna hold everyone by the wine grapes, and then we're gonna squeeze them later. And so I was talking logistics with the general manager because I've been on the management side, and we were discussing. He was telling me their financial timeline, and I was like, "How fine dining?" I asked him how fine dining it was going to be, and I said, "Are you going to turn a table?" And he was like, of course." And I was like, I don't know.
Hmm.
Ultra luxury that's your table for the night.
0 turns.
0 turns. I'm like, can you do it? No, but he was like, we're going to turn a table every night. We're going to enter at a lower price point, probably something just below $200. And then at like the 3-month mark or the 6-month mark, after the New York Times review comes out, he's like, there's a formula. He's like, we're going to go up to 250, 275, and then
Mm.
hopefully within a year's time, we'll be in our $300 ticket price. And I was like, and you're going to change he's like, no, he's like, we're just not going to make as much of a profit. And I think that's what's interesting is I'm like, is it when you get to a certain level per head that you start making a profit? I think that where fine dining restaurants should be the most transparent about how actually they really make their money is they price they really like jack up the price for private events. Private
Yeah.
events, one private event a month can float the restaurant for 6 months. Not that's maybe a little extreme, but 2 to 3 months for sure. And then the whole rest of the time you're just doing normal services in between. So you're kind of sustaining essentially
Hmm.
because people always want to throw their thing at whatever restaurant they think is like incredible, amazing, whatever, and they'll pay the price for it, literally and figuratively.
You will pay the
And
price.
I think that fine dining. I have seen less and less fine dining restaurants open. So when I heard about this one, I was kind of shocked, especially because it's going to be in the Lower East Side,
Hmm.
an area that typically prides itself on like restaurants that are really simple, these places that feel vaguely European, where you go in for like a glass of wine and some fried shrimp heads, and then have a cigarette outside.
That sounds
Um,
great.
so I think fine dining. I'm scared and a little bit worried. I think just as much as you are. It's like this world that existed that was actually just really kind of nice every now and then to just
Yeah.
get dressed up, whatever that means to you. Go out, and you know that you want to go a little bit more in. You want to get a wine that you would normally drink on a regular basis. You want to be in the company, and you want to just like, yes, we want the cheese cart. Bring the cheese cart over. We want
Bring
this.
that
We want
fucking
that.
cheese curd. Roll it
It's
out
like
here.
living. It's like living in a time capsule for 4 hours, and then you just go back to your life. And events like that, a good movie, a really amazing meal, seeing a show at an art thing, whatever that looks like. It really boosts your creativity, and it gives you so much energy and life back than you ever thought possible. Sometimes that's the way to recharge and to sort of stimulate all of those senses. Food is like the one that stimulates all of them, like if the server is moving gracefully and is very like whip smart and just funny, and you walk away, you want to do your job better. Everything is aspirational. You want to be a better cook.
Mm.
You want to entertain better. You want to buy nicer wine just for those friends, just because, and I think it always lifts you up a little bit. It's sort of like when you're feeling a bit paunchy and slouchy, it's like you kind of like sit in your chair a little bit different. Not that you shouldn't be comfortable, but like it gives you that opportunity to kind of escape. And that little
Yeah.
bit of escape I think is so nice now, but it's really sad because we all get sort of priced out at some point, where it's just like, I don't know, like it used to be and you're right. You all are right. It used to be more accessible. It was.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's kind of become like you have to have just like so much like fu money, like
Mm-hmm.
where you're like, I don't need it, let's go.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like all of the best culinary experiences are going to end up going into the private sector, whether it's, and we see this sometimes inside the food world. Like you'll see chefs having parties with each other and you're like, oh shit, that looks amazing. And you can't get in. You know what I mean? And there's going to be a lot more of that. Because a lot of people, I think, confuse it. Like they're like, who cares? Fine dining is for like rich bureaucrats or something. And I'm like, it's just not. I loved your description. I'm like, it could be. Sure, that's kind of the people that go there. But for people like you and I, who've worked in them and also like saved our money to go to them, it's an art form. It's the way you would experience any other piece of art. It's something that I still want to exist and that I'm genuinely like not even afraid, because things change and things go away, but I'm like, this would be kind of a watershed moment for not having those available, or not having a NOMA, or having it be just a pop-up, or having people say, I just can't make this work. Because when I look at, even like I said, just a standard restaurant, I talk to restaurateurs and people in Charleston. It's like you can't even open your doors for a 10 table restaurant in Charleston for under $1 million.
Yeah,
That's just what it
in
costs
Charleston.
in Charleston.
Yeah, yeah.
Imagine New York City, imagine Copenhagen, imagine Paris, imagine all of these places where there is, it's staggering to think about how that math is going to ever work. Anyway, it started freaking me out because I was like, oh my God, like this truly could. I think all of us have been like, there's no bubble. There's no way that people will ever stop being excited about food, or there's no way that we could reach the end of this road. And I think this headline in particular made people like me maybe be like, ooh, could we? Is there a way that we've gone too far and that things maybe there was too much of an overcorrection, that it's okay to apprentice at something, at a craft that you love? I'm not saying people should work extendedly for years unpaid. That's not legal. That's terrible. But I'm saying if the system, the ecosystem that maybe people don't understand from the outside looking in, they just say, oh, you work there for free? That's wrong. And they don't understand that the people come there to learn, and then they go back to the restaurants that they own. These people are not, impoverished people who can't do anything but work for free. These people have it's their choice to be there and learn. They're not there against their will. And I think the overcorrection of calling for all of these, changes, and this restructuring of restaurants is actually endangering restaurants,
Yeah,
because people who don't understand the ecosystem or who have been wronged by it, because that does happen. Let's just say there was a case in South Carolina where a man was not being paid, and he was, it was illegal. It was terrible. It was insane. They had like tricked him into working there, and he was not being paid a living wage to do a very hard restaurant job. And not everyone is good, but I'm just saying, when you just take something out of context and then say like, you must do this now. And then we're seeing the repercussion of that, which is, were people really being wronged? I didn't feel wronged when I left there. Working at NOMA was one of the coolest experiences of my career.
Truth be told, I think that there's this thing too with you and I specifically, and you didn't see my experience, I didn't see yours, but I can almost be willing to say with accuracy that should we want to work there at some point paid, that could have been something that might have been on the table.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
And inevitably, in America, how stages work and all of that now, you know, you do have to do that sort of like interview process. It's crazy because when you look at the corporate world, you do 7, 8+ interviews for one job. You meet all of these different people. That the interview could be anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour and a half, and you're just getting to know each other, and they're weeding out their candidates. How is that so different than what a restaurant does, which is like, we really want to see
what you can do.
Even the most delicate thing, which is not only someone's work ethic or just like their technical ability, but their disposition, like how they get along with the porter, how they get along with management, you know, especially when the pressure's on. You know, like we don't have cubicle. I'm not saying anything about whatever, but I'm just saying, like, I'm using the cubicle as an example. Or if you're working from home, you can't have a frustrating meeting and then just kind of step away for a little bit. You have to physically be around that all the time. So how people manage that, people need to see it not only one day, 2 day, but they kind of need to see it develop over time.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
and
a good analogy, because that is something that I really do feel like restaurants have been lumped into a corporate setting and corporate expectations recently because of bad actors and people who are actually abusing their staff.
yeah.
I mean, we all know that happens. I'm not saying that's like fake news by any means. It happens, but in truth, there is a lot that restaurants kind of just exist in their own category as far as how they should be run. And I think a lot of people who, yeah, like I said, don't really understand it, have kind of are now threatening its existence at all, because people are just like blanket statements saying things like stages should be paid. And they don't understand that it is an ecosystem that then goes out, and those people leave those stages with what they've learned, and they either go back to their existing restaurants, or they are somebody who's extremely motivated and will eventually open a restaurant in their community. And so I'm like, if you don't have these places for people to come to learn, it's almost like, it feels like shutting down like Harvard or something. You know what I mean? Harvard just being like, we can't make the numbers work, y'all. It's just too expensive in these dorms. Honestly, truly, these dorms are too nice. You guys are
right. New York Times tomorrow. Yale shutters its doors for the first time.
Oh my God. Like, and so
Princeton
maybe
just says nah.
yeah, Princeton says, we out, y'all.
Princeton says lesbians go somewhere else.
It's just too, it's crazy. And it's I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it. Clearly, I can't get my head on straight about how I feel about it. Number one, I also just like love that the food culinary world loves to hate Noma. You know what I mean? They can't live without it, and yet it's like the thing that everybody cares the most about. And it's also, it just represents that world that we're from and where we met. And so I thought you would be the perfect person to kind of walk through it with me, because
Thank you.
I do think it is confusing. And I hear everyone when I see people being like, so what? They're pieces of shit anyway. And like that food's not accessible. Like I understand all of the angles, but as someone who truly does care about the actual, what it means for our industry, it definitely hits different than just like a shock. It's more like, oh man, this isn't just like one headline. This is a canary in a cave for something else.
Yeah. And what's unfortunate, this would be my closing remarks on this. What's unfortunate is that it Renee Redzepi is the figurehead. Not That's the unfortunate part. That's a statement. The unfortunate part is that there's this whole just right underneath him, there's this whole existence of all of these different lives, all of these different experiences, all of these insanely passionate people. Like there's all these videos of Renee Redzepi being wax poetic about,
I have a few that I shot while I was there.
right. That's right.
I have
Asparagus that like came like
just
literally from
came.
underneath the sea. Sebastian, he met Sebastian and Ariel, and he was like, "Can I have that asparagus?" And they were like, "Yes, you can." Sorry, I'm not doing any more impressions, but no, but you know what I mean. Like he waxed
Yes.
poetics, but everyone else that works under him is incredibly talented and extremely kind. And when I was there, I felt so taken. I had
Same.
friends staying with me when I was in Copenhagen, so I couldn't like do as much with the people that work there. But they had so much of an invested interest in me, and I know that they did the same thing with you. They like take you out. They make sure you feel welcome. They show you a good time. They're really hospitable people,
Oh,
and it's just
absolutely.
unfortunate that they all that somehow everyone just like looks at one thing, like the tunnel
Mhm.
vision almost. And I'm like, no, there's like Ali, like he's a partner
Yeah.
in the restaurant, and
Ali
he's
is
an
a porter.
amazing
Yeah.
person,
He's a porter at the restaurant, and which is for common speak for is dishwasher or someone that handles cleaning up. And he is a partner in the restaurant. And that's what I think they tell that story well now on social, but I think they have to try to like kind of help rehab their image. And I'm like, but it was never tarnished to begin with if you actually know what's going on here.
Yes.
And that's the hard part, is that I think it's almost like you could liken 3 Michelin star to like playing in the NFL. Like not everybody wants to play in the NFL.
Right.
So don't. It's okay. But like don't come to the NFL and be like, y'all shouldn't practice that hard. That's a lot. It's like,
You don't know until you actually like, and that's the thing too. Like even if you think you know because you did the thing, the moment this is always my favorite thing about telling people about leaving restaurants. It's like the moment you're gone, that's it. You no longer work there. You thought
mm,
you knew how it worked when you were there, but the moment you leave, it's instantly something different. Don't attach yourself to don't make your memories like make you the victim of whatever. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like you get attached to your memory there, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, it was when I was. Everyone's holding on to that a little bit. You have to like let that flush out because I don't know what they're doing at NOMA now. I wish them all well. It's still the same people that I worked with when I was there, and when I see them, I'm like, wow, it's such a really wonderful place because these people really love working there. They love what they do so much, and what it means to work there. That it has to be a great place, and also it's an easier and freer way of living your life to just not cloud your judgment with all of those things all the time.
Exactly. Exactly. I think it's just an interesting thing to happen, and the fact that they're going to turn it in to a lab and then do pop-ups. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that, and I think we're going to see a lot more kind of bigger named chefs and restaurant professionals um fleeing the scene to go into the private sector.
Yeah.
And I don't mean private chefing making grilled cheese for their little snot-nosed kids. I mean like having experiences that are thoughtful, that are different, that are using their skills in a way that they want to, without the prying eyes and the like kind of rule book sticklery stuff that is saying like, wait a minute now, did you pay that person that peeled those nuts? When you don't understand what's happening is all I'm saying. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens from here on out, because the concept that I'm talking about in Charleston that's opening with no servers, it's just a wristband and you just like scan it, and then you can see what the wait time is for the food. You can see when it's coming. You can do any of the modifications yourself, and then it just arrives and it gets charged to your wristband. And they're very excited about this concept, and I'm excited for them. But I am, as someone that used to wait tables, kind of like, oh my God, like every restaurant's going to be like that. Because I can tell you, I got off the interstate and I went to a McDonald's, And there was you don't even order in the line anymore. I'm sure it's been like that in New York for a long time, but I was like, what, in middle of nowhere, South Carolina? Like, there was no one working in the front. It was like, you have to know how to use the computer. Like, I was doing it myself and doing I was like, I work at McDonald's now.
I know. I would love to see
crazy.
the last McDonald's that doesn't do the computer. They're like, what?
I mean, it's been a minute since I went to a McDonald's because I was like, wait, they don't even have any employees. They have like some people back there making a burger, but how long till they're gone? And then how many restaurants, like from not fine dining to fast casual to whatever, will be not manned by people? And I think that is what freaks me out the most.
Lindsay, you're at the precipice of a really huge conversation this year, based off of other podcasts I listen to. I won't plug them, but
No, please.
the AI conversation is really big this year because people feel the pressure more than ever, and it's scary. It's uncertain. And this is how it starts. It creeps in really slowly. So I think it's interesting. I think, food is going to change, but the one thing that you can't really, get in any of those types of places, McDonald's with a computer, a place where you have to, I guess, have money in your wristband. You got to put cash in your wrist.
Yes. What?
You got to put cash in your belt. And
Cash in your bracelet.
the one thing you will never get is genuine human connection, which can
Exactly.
only exist in the ethos of a restaurant.
But I think those will become so rare and so sought after and so impossible to get into that there will be a few that survive and do really well. And then the rest, because investors, I can tell you, when they look at a restaurant, like, I don't have to be a person who's good with money to look at it and be like, that's a bad industry to invest in. Don't invest in that. Like, no, and that's why people are being like, all right, fuck all this crisis stuff. Let's just go straight to the wristband option. And I've been getting freaked out for some time because I saw there's restaurants in Charleston, I'm sure there's all over New York, where they don't even have a board. They run it on a screen. You know what I mean? And so I was also alarmed years ago when that started popping up. I was like, what? There's no board? Like, I feel like I'm an old dinosaur, just being like, I'm confused. Like, they're eliminating a person each time they do that. And so I think it will stand out. And I think the takeaway here is like, you better learn how to cook. You better learn how to cook at home, and don't go to Trader Joe's to try to get your food because they're not filling the orders. I was like, bitch, do I have to be a farmer now too? Like, what is
Go to Trader Joe. First of all, when I wasn't revealed yet and you were talking about the Trader Joe's thing, I had such a hard time from not laughing. Jeremy went to Trader Joe's and there was no food. And I was like, what? How is that possible?
I mean, there was food, but he was like, the shelves were bare. The shelves were bare. And he was like, did you guys just get like crushed? Like, what happened? And they're like, no, they're just not filling orders. Like, I think I have some real fears about how people are going to eat. I think I'm really concerned. And I've been like I said, those three things that happened this week. I mean, we didn't even mention Thomas Keller losing his golf bag. That got buried in the news cycle.
Oh my god! But no, to be fair, it is really funny that like the amount of comedy that brewed from that just one thing.
I know, it's amazing. And to be fair, like, he can't help that he's a ridiculously famous person. Anybody else would have done the same thing. I see people tagging Delta. They're like, cancel my flight at Delta.
Yeah.
He's just trying to get his bag back. But it made me laugh because I woke up to that. It was like Thomas lost his golf bag and had a reward out for it. And then Renee had to just one up him and be like, I'm closing NOMA. Sorry about your golf bag.
It would have been hilarious if Renee was like, lost or stolen NOMA 2.0.
My will to keep working in restaurants. If seen, right, there's a reward for it. I just I appreciate you talking through it with me because I really was rather confused at the different takes that people. I don't know. There was just none that really I read that I was like, that's how I feel. It was all kind of a bunch of like that's what you get type of attitude, or like, oh dear, the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ has sent down his decree. Like there was nothing in between. And I was kind of like, I don't feel connected to either of those ideas.
I mean, I did a little quip about it where it's like,
I
nice one, Noma. Guess what? I cancel myself.
I liked that.
I'm like, I'm taking myself out first. I'm like, you don't get to do this to me. How
Yeah.
dare you? No,
No.
but I think what we're having here is what more people should have, which is like just a healthy, open discussion. Obviously, we're both pro, like, go out with your grand finale season, bro. We love
Yeah.
it.
Oh yeah.
But if there's opposing thoughts with anything, discuss them. You know, like don't recoil, like, and then get underneath the covers and be like, I hate these people. I hate these people. Talk about it openly, because you get exposed to so much and you feel so much more open and light when someone doesn't agree with you. All of a sudden, you might like them even more. You know.
Yeah, or at least be open to what they're saying, because I'm like, the inside experience that I feel like we both have is, some people, might not have ever been able to see it from that perspective unless they hear it in that way. So I think it's worth talking about, but I also am just like, God, I hope people will keep on keeping on, because I think a lot of people are fed up with restaurants and restaurant works. I know for myself, the reason I don't work in restaurants anymore is not because of the conditions. It was because I reached a ceiling for pay, and my lifestyle with my kids. I have to, I could no longer work for that amount of money, even though it was really good money when I was just one person.
Yeah.
But now it makes me sad that I've been priced out. So I'm like, in theory, I should be even more pro, like getting the wages up and getting a fair pay. But part of me just doesn't know if that's for me anymore. And maybe that's okay. And maybe that I'd rather have me kind of transition out of restaurant work and move into something else, because restaurant work prepares you for anything, literally anything. And there's so much that you can do with the skills that you gain in restaurants. And it doesn't have to be like, we don't have to kill restaurants by trying to like make it a job that you can get rich at. It could just be something you're passionate about, and then you move on, or you do something else with your life.
There's all
Because
these little
physically,
seeds everywhere. You're a great cook, Lindsay. Honestly,
oh,
like, I
thank
like to cook, you love to cook, and I feel like when we tell people about what we're cooking, it makes them want to cook as well. And so I feel like there's all these personalities that are in the ether that people are attaching themselves to. They're like, I like what she does, I like what he does, I like what they do, and everyone feels like they have a seat at the table. There's so much accessibility, and I feel personally that that's maybe what the positive thing about this whole thing is that they get attached to you, the host of F&B radio. They get attached to someone like myself, and they're like, wow, he just made that look so easy, and like, she's funny, he's funny, and like, yeah, it doesn't have to be so highfalutin and doesn't have to be so inaccessible. I have been like fetishizing it for years, and it can literally be this thing that can exist in the walls of my own home, you know?
I think that's well said. I mean, I went to a pizza party this weekend that was the best restaurant experience I've had, and it was in Jason's backyard, and it's pizza on a plywood table. And so that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's like no one will ever have a good food experience again, but I do think it'll change shape, and it's going to continue to morph, and the places that you have them won't be four walls that you can like find on Resi. And in some ways, now that you're talking about it, maybe it's for the best, because maybe people are going to have to like go underground and get creative and actually seek things out again, which has kind of been lost in the era of Instagram, where people can you don't even have to be cool or good at food to know about restaurants anymore. You just have to have a phone, you know what I mean? And it literally prompts you like, here's restaurants for you, and they're all good. Like, I no longer reach out to people in the city I go to, because I don't want to bother them and be like, where should I eat? But also, they probably can't tell me anything I can't find online. And that's been bothering me for a long time, because gone are the days of like stumbling across a place in Portugal or Spain that you may never even remember the name to, but you have this incredible experience there. And I think maybe this is a way of the universe achieving balance, because things did get so out of hand with like these
Mm.
Instagrammable restaurants and these coveted experiences that are just kind of made for anyone and no one all at the same time. And instead, we have now this like everything's going to look different, but you will have these serendipitous like, oh my god, that was the best night of our life, and it can't be replicated and it can't be found on Resi.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's very, very, very timely meditation from Lindsay Collins, by the way, because it really is sort of the loosely tied to everything, anything, everything, everywhere, all at once. That movie,
Yes.
yeah, it's like
Oh,
everything just like, and I think we're gonna be living in this universe where everything is possible.
I do. I
Yeah,
think so too.
you can be two things at once.
Robert, you've just helped me go from being like very sad and like scared, like, oh no, the future's so bleak, to being like, maybe this is what needs to happen. I think you've turned me around just from talking to you.
Thank
You
you. Well,
really
I
have.
mean, it was the therapist at NOMA that did it for me. I still see her. Bjorna is her name. Really
Amazing.
sweet woman. She does knit her own clothing. But
Wow. Wow. I mean, damn.
yeah,
That
what a
as
sweet woman.
as she gets dressed, she's just knitting it as she's naked when she starts the session. But
Yes,
by
that's
the time
right.
it's over, she's knitted a sweater right over her beautiful body. All right. Things that I want to talk about before we end this classically long podcast. This is how I know I'm talking to Robert Pratt, because we're now at 52 minutes. If you're still listening,
I
thank you.
know. By the way, sweating over here because I'm like, are we overtime? You know.
No, there's no time. I just only do 20 minutes because that's all I got. But this is just I've had more to say. I want to hear from you. Um, Robert Pratt is coming to Charleston. Robert, I don't even think I've told you this, but Rip City, which you all know if you've listened to this show, I talk about it all the time. My friend Marion Henry's experimental comedy show that comes once a month, just like my period. It is happening on January 28th. It's a Saturday. Robert is coming, and I have written a sketch. Robert really wrote it, but it happened out of an experience last time we had when we had just gotten back from Bar George. We were in a very silly mood, and we kind of like roughly wrote this sketch and created this character. I'm so excited to perform with Robert, because Robert is a sleeper like genius comedian who has studied comedy in a professional way. When you lived in LA, you took classes, and
I did
where
in the earliest days of F&B radio. I think like episode 4, The Prodigal Son.
yes.
That's right,
Yes.
with special guest.
Ari.
What
Voldemort.
yeah. What's his name?
Ari.
Ari Collender. Yeah, yeah,
Collender.
yeah. And your sister was on. Your sister was the comedic genius of that episode. She
She
was like,
really
I don't know,
did.
it's vintage, and we were all like, ah.
That's a deep cut for only OG fans. But Robert has studied comedy, is one of the funniest people I know. I never laugh as hard as when I talk on the phone to Robert, and so I'm really excited for us to perform together at Rip City. It's gonna be. Are you just so excited? Can you believe it's happening in just a few weeks?
I can't believe it's happening. I'm really excited to present this sketch. And it's crazy writing, because typically writing for me, it's like either like I go back to the drawing board. I wrote the sketch in an hour. It's sort of and then I like go back to all those YouTube videos of like Lady Gaga being like, I wrote Bad Romance in 2 minutes, and I'm
In a
like,
bathroom.
yeah, me too, me too. And so I wrote the sketch in an hour, and it might show, but
No, it's gonna
nothing too
crush.
precious about it. It's a character study. It's just a scene between Lindsay and and I don't want to give away. I don't want to give away too much.
No, they have to come to the show to see it.
You have to come to the show to see it, because it will be a spectacle before your eyes. You will not believe what you are about to see. You will not believe it, literally and figuratively. Okay?
It's
And
gonna
just so
be
you
amazing.
know, I have never been more jazzed about anyone coming to life more than this character.
Oh, this character needs to be in the world. This is just something
This
that
character
I've
is going to
been.
get her own movie.
Oh, easily. This is going to be your breakout role. I'm so excited. You guys have to come to the show. Robert, on the bill, they put you as Robert from New York. So I hope that's okay. It's just Lindsay and Robert from New York, because we really wanted to play up that you're from New York. So
Perfect.
everyone was very
Might
excited.
be some soft bullying with that, but
Oh no, it's out of only adoration. People are like, New York City. He's from New York. He must be real funny. Well, we're gonna have a good time. I'm so excited about it. Also, today, and I know you don't want to talk about this, but I want to talk about it. Robert just started a TikTok where he is doing food like demos, basically showing you how to make stuff, which is going to help you when all the restaurants close and robots work at them. So you should
right.
really follow along.
That's right. When everyone's neck just completely sinks into their shoulders and we all are in wheelchairs. Basically the movie WALL-E is correct. All right.
That's my biggest fear. That's what I've been trying to say the whole time is that are we just at the WALL-E part now? That's where we're going, where we're slurping cupcakes out of a straw. Is that what's happening?
I think so. No, but
No, for
I
TikTok.
launched it and I'm already a video ahead. I did 2 videos tonight. Just turning them out. I really have a lot of fun with them. You can follow me on TikTok and Instagram. These like 6 months ago, I thought I'd never be saying this. At Shay Robert. That's CHEZROBERT. That's
You
correct.
nailed it.
And yeah, it's just what I cook. I am going into it with a really fresh perspective. I only want to do stuff I want to do. So if you hit me up in the comment section, you're like, let's see a burger. Not gonna happen
Not gonna
unless
happen.
I want to make it.
I love it.
So yeah, there's going to be little bits and bobs like pantry staples. There's going to be like I'm going to show everyone what my tiny ass kitchen looks like and how I
Cool.
utilize it and the tools that are essential to make cooking happen in this tiny space. And yeah, and I really want to do it, and I feel like it's a nice way to connect with people and to kind of hopefully I learned a little bit myself. Like I'm like, okay, that doesn't work. Back to
Yeah.
the drawing board.
Yeah, no, I think that's really exciting. And someone with your knowledge, because Robert's being very demure, but he went to and graduated from the CIA, which is the Culinary Institute of America. It's one of the best cooking school in all of North America. And it's amazing. You do incredibly amazing and intricate recipes. But what I like about the first one that you posted was it all seems very attainable. Um, so it's just something that's simple that makes you an actual better cook. And that's something that I'm not really I've learned how to cook. But it's been through it's always in very simple ways. Like even sometimes making a salad dressing is too hard. I recently I got a cookbook for my friend Katie Ogle, the Via Carota cookbook. And
Yeah.
instead of buying a copy myself, I just screenshotted a bunch of pictures of the recipes and then sent it to her. Which is fine because I was like, I don't need all this. I'm not going to make this duck recipe literally ever, but I will take this vinaigrette. And I made the vinaigrette. It was unbelievable. It's so good, but it requires me rinsing shallots in a strainer. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to slice the shallot and squeeze the lemon and season the lettuce and put the olive oil in. And it's my preferred way. So I think simple for me is always best because I need it to be like something that actually is a technique or a skill rather than a recipe. And I think that's what you do so well is you make it seem very simple and you have incredible taste in what you eat. And it always is extraordinarily beautiful. And I think it's going to be really fun to watch what you put on there. So follow along on Shay Robert. And it's on TikTok. It's the same, right? Shay Robert.
Yeah, Shay Robert. I got the rights to it. Yeah, there was this.
Oh, God.
Yeah, there was
That
this,
was a legal battle.
There was this woman in Latvia who's a restaurant owner that I had to.
She was like, "Show me."
She was like,
"Show me your legal papers. You got a lawyer?"
She's like, "Show me your Insta." All right.
Yeah, she's like, "Show me your ID and your bank account." Okay. Yeah, I think it's going to be really fun to follow along. You are truly just a delight, and my son. Everyone, I tell Robert all the time since before I had children that he was my son, and now that I have 3 sons, and now I have 4 sons. So Robert is my oldest son, but he's not actually my son, but he is actually my son. So get it right. Follow my son. And as my son, are we matching? We're on video. You guys can't see this, but all of a sudden I realized that we are matching. Hold on. What? Robert
Oh
and
my God, this is wild.
Robert and I are matching. Wait, okay. Oh my God.
Also, like, I don't think I could do this sign in certain parts of the country.
No, that's it's an audio medium. You don't have to see these gang signs we're throwing up. Oh, Robert, thank you for helping me sort out my thoughts about why the restaurant industry is headed for a catastrophic decline. And I actually don't feel that way anymore. I just feel like it will look different, and I think it's a good thing. And I'm curious to know your thoughts as a listener, as a person who either cares about this or doesn't care about this. I feel like if you're still listening, you care about this. So send me your thoughts. Send me what you think about this. Um, tell me where you were when you heard NOMA was closing. Do you remember? Because
Where were you on January 6th, by the way? I've always wanted to ask.
That if Mari's listening to this, which I know she is, that was actually a question that she asked in trivia at the last Rip City. It was a question to be able to pop a balloon, and it was just supposed to be an easy question to answer, and she just tossed it out there. Where were you on January 6th? She'll appreciate that. Robert, Elliot, Pratt, at Shay Robert, whatever you want me to call you, my son. Thank you so much for being on F&B Radio.
Thank you. This has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
It's a joy. We should do this more often. I literally record in my closet, and you can see it's my bedroom, but it's kind of like a closet. And sometimes I'm just going to call you when I can't sort it out on my own.
That's okay. If anyone needs to sort it out, you can Facebook call me at Shay Robert. We can have a chat.
Sometimes people accidentally Instagram call me, and for a real second, I think they're actually calling me, and I just freeze. I'm like, should I answer? What do they want? Who are they? Why do they say blow me at the end? And then I'm like, what? Why is my Instagram stories just filled with sex bots? Is that anyone else, or am I doing something wrong?
No, you're doing all the right stuff, apparently.
Okay. All right. Watch my peach. That's what they keep telling me. And I'm like, oh, why? Too old.
too old.
I'm too old for this.
God.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is such a great call. I really appreciate it. And I'm so happy to be here and to literally see you in 2 weeks.
Oh my God, 2 weeks. Get your tickets. I don't think they're on sale yet, but they will be on sale soon. I will share it in my stories. Shay Robert will share it in. Wow, that's like a tongue twister. Shay Robert will share it in his stories.
Shay Robert will share it in his stories. And you better believe it. It's going to be a shovel of a good time.
She shells shares by the Share Shore. Thank you. I love you. I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to everyone who's been rating and reviewing the show. Thank you to everyone that went to Baba's and bought a cream puff and then sent me a text that was like, suck it. You know who you are. I truly do love it, and I love that you guys are taking advantage of the best pastry in all of Charleston. You can rate and review the show on Apple and Spotify, and it really does mean a lot to me, and it's free, and it helps the show so much. But I love you. I'll see you all next week. Bye. 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 Je laisserai un mot sur le frigo. Déciderai de se faire la malle. Ta famille, les amis.